And now, introducing the most wanted man in America. Baseball wants him for their new commissioner. The Terps want him as their new head coach. Pressbox wants him to stop gambling and get back to work. And your girlfriend wants him to show what love is. He's the John Stamos of Baltimore sports. He is Glenn Clark.
Good morning. It is Glenn Clark Radio. I am Glenn Clark. He is Paul Valley. Papa Cass is here today as well. And got much to discuss on a Tuesday edition of the program as we're hoping that at some point during the course of the day we will find out that baseball has gotten its S together and they have come to an agreement. Thought that maybe it might be coming last night, never finalized, and so we continue to play the waiting game, but as I expected, their deadline was nonsense. It was always nonsense. It was always a joke. The idea that they were actually going to start canceling games last night was never going to be the case because they don't need to, because it's not necessary. It's just silly. We're just saying things for the sake of saying them, and obviously it was posturing to try to force the player's hand and try to say, hey, you need to come meet with us because we're going to start canceling your games. No, they were never going to do that. That was not going to be a thing. And it appears as though they're close, or at least close enough, as they've come to agreement on certain things, like it's going to be 12 teams that make the playoffs, so not 14 as have been discussed. It'll be 6 teams in each league that will be in the playoffs, which is a concession from the players. I know a lot of people are like, it's too many. We don't need that. I hear you. The players want there to be more difficulty in getting into the postseason. So I say it's not a concession from the players. Sorry, it's a concession from the owners. The owners want more playoff games. They want more games that people want to watch and more product that you can sell to the networks. They want there to be more teams in the playoffs. The players themselves think fewer teams in the playoffs means more teams have to spend money in order to try to be good because it's more difficult to make it to the postseason. So the players won on that one. What they're giving elsewhere, to be determined. But they won that one. The owners wanted more teams in the playoffs. The players are getting their way with it being 12, 6 teams in each league moving forward that will make the postseason. Is that the right answer? Is that the right number? I don't know. I really don't know. I don't know what the right answer to a lot of these things are. Honestly, I don't know. Because I don't know which one I care about more. This idea of it's just too much and it's not necessary. Okay, fine. There's a lot of things that aren't necessary. It's not necessary to play 162 games either, but we're going to keep doing that. So I don't know how much I care about the not necessary side of it versus the other side to me as a consumer, where I like there being more games that matter. I can't lie about that. If my team's not interesting, I'm checked out until the postseason begins. So I'm for there being more postseason baseball because it's the good product. I'm torn on this. I'm like, it's like the Backstreet Boys. I'm tearing up my heart. So the Backstreet Boys are in sync. I don't remember now. It's Backstreet Boys,
I think it's
right?
Backstreet Boys.
Boys tearing up my heart. Way before Papa Kaz over here. Thanks.
She wasn't even a glimmer in her parents' eyes.
Right? She absolutely gave me a blank stare when I asked that question. And admittedly, I looked at her because she's a female, and that's just then I remembered, oh, right, yeah, she's 20. Like, there's just no world in which that means anything to her whatsoever. It means way more to your boy than it does to Papa Cass. It's tearing up my heart, man. I don't know. I don't know what the right answer is, but I know what the answer is going to be. It's going to be 12 teams in the postseason moving forward. So that's that. Now, what we do need to talk about today is this bizarre report. I don't know what to make of it. That left most of us gobsmacked yesterday. And we will chat with the man who authored the report, Raul Ramos. He writes for a website called Con las bases full. With the bases full. I am bilingual. When I saw this yesterday about the Orioles' interest in Carlos Correa, admittedly, my first thought was, I'm not going to give this any credence because I don't know who this person is. And unlike a lot of people on the internet who amplify things like Hollywood Brown is going to quit football to become a video game player, I'm not going to be someone who does that. I'm going to poke around a bit more before I simply amplify something in any way, even just with like a quizzical concern. I just don't want to amplify anything. Of course, Raul Ramos is a member of the Baseball Writers Association of America. He's not just some guy with a blog. He actually covers the Latin side of baseball significantly. He's not just a guy. He's not Steve, who started a blog one day and, did things to manipulate Twitter followers and suddenly woke up one morning and had enough Twitter followers that he was able to get verified because of it. He's an actual reporter. What do we make of it? I don't know. We're going to talk to him in a few minutes. A lot of people would say, well, the fact that it wasn't immediately followed up with other reporters suggesting it was true says to me it's not true. Maybe, but those reporters are also a little bit sidetracked at the moment. There's other things going on in baseball that probably have them a bit distracted from worrying about whether or not the Orioles are interested in Carlos Correa. So I don't know what to make of it. We'll talk to him, and the idea is fascinating, of course. I'm still betting against it. I'm still quite skeptical of the Orioles, as a few people have pointed out. You could be interested in someone, but not interested at 10 years and $350 million. You could be interested in, hey, if the market crashes, we'll make a phone call. Versus, no, we're legitimately going to pay $350 million for a baseball player, which is twice more than double anything we've ever paid for a baseball player. I'm skeptical, to say the least. Not of the report, of the reality. I would bet against the Orioles actually being in the Carlos Correa market. Again, there's a difference between interest and really being in the market. The comparison I would make once upon a time. A lot of people were angry at Mark Teixeira for not signing with the Orioles. What I said then, based on my reporting, was really important to me. There was nothing to be angry about Mark Teixeira about. The Orioles never actually offered Mark Teixeira a contract. And it's a nuance that was lost on a lot of people. Were the Orioles interested? Yes, they were. They were interested. They talked to Mark Teixeira's camp. Did the Orioles actually ever put a piece of paper in front of Mark Teixeira that said, if you sign this, you'll be a Baltimore Oriole? No, that never occurred. And the reason it never occurred is because they were never even going to pay Mark Teixeira the lesser money that was reportedly offered. I don't like using the word sham, right? Because something could become real, I guess. But the Orioles were never signing Mark Teixeira. They got involved in the process because they understood how bad of a look it would be for a hometown player to be available on the market and for them to be completely uninterested. They played it out perfectly. Make it look like he's the bad guy because he signed with the team that you hated for more money. The Orioles were never signing Mark Teixeira. They were never paying, again, even the lesser amount of money that was reported that they had offered. They were never doing that. And the reason they didn't put a contract in front of him is because there was a bizarro world in which he might have said yes. He wasn't. He was always going to take more money for the Yankees. But what if that day he decided, you know what, the hell with it, I'd rather be home. I'll just sign this deal. Then they would have been screwed because they were never paying him that money. They never put a contract in front of Mark Teixeira. Does that mean they weren't interested? We're parsing. You could say they were interested. If the market had crashed, maybe they would have. Maybe if Mark Teixeira said, I'll play for you for nothing, perhaps they would have. But they weren't paying that money. I don't know what to make of the Carlos Correa thing. I also, unfortunately, am in a situation where we have to read Google Translate in order for me to dive more in on what it is that we learned in this report from Raul Ramos, who, again, is going to join us in about 10 minutes here on GCR. Admittedly, as I did say, I was bilingual. That's not fully accurate. I'm not remotely bilingual. I speak almost no Spanish, almost none whatsoever. I mean, very, very little. That's just the reality of it. Anyway, sorry. I was trying to come up with it. Apparently, I've already run out of my the number of times I'm able to translate something into English for the day. Oh, come on, man. Oh, I can't translate it again. That's very frustrating. All right, anyway. Look, the moral of the story is the report says they will do their best to acquire Puerto Rican free agent Carlos Correa. Sources confirm the genuine interest of the Orioles in acquiring Puerto Rican free agent Carlos Correa. Before the work stoppage, Baltimore had already informed William Morris Endeavor, former agent, of interest in Correa. Now it will be up to Scott Boras to close the deal that would be for 10 seasons and over $350 million. So there's two different things, and that's how that's worded. And again, this is something that's difficult because it could be lost in translation. I don't know if what he's actually saying is that his report is that the Orioles were prepared to offer 10 years and $350 million, or the translation that comes across via Google is that they're interested in the player and the player's deal should be for 10 years and $350 million. Separated is significant. If he's not saying the Orioles are willing to pay 10 years and $350 million for Carlos Correa, well then, come on, what are we doing here? If it's just they're interested and separately, here's the price it's likely to cost, well, there's a big chasm between those two things in which the Orioles could say, yeah, we're interested, just not for those numbers. You know, if you said at one point during the process there was a report that Carlos Correa would be interested in going to a team that was rebuilding, would be willing to go to a team that was rebuilding, if they were doing it the right way. Well, if you want to come here for 7 years and, $175 million, we'll talk. I don't know. Again, we'll talk more about it in a minute with the guy that wrote the story. I don't know, but the Google Translate makes it difficult. Would it be worth breaking the bank for Carlos Correa? That, by the way, I still think is a relevant question. Carlos Correa alone does not a rebuild make. It goes a long way in closing the gap that I've brought up a few times in relation to what if something goes wrong with Adley Rutschman? What if Adley Rutschman is Matt Wieters instead of being the true transcendent superstar that we want to believe he's going to be? Separating the pitching problem that's going to exist no matter what, separating that, just in terms of that championship caliber lineup that we were talking about with Keith Law a couple weeks ago, that the Orioles could put together based on what they have internally, that has to involve Adley Rutschman becoming a transcendent superstar. I mean, like, that legitimate of a player with a bat. Not just a high-level catcher, not just a guy that can hit a little bit. A truly transcendent superstar who's also a catcher. It's like having a 2-for-1 deal. If he doesn't become that guy, the roadmap to making this a championship caliber starting lineup becomes more perilous. It has to involve Ryan Mountcastle improving even beyond what we've seen from him. There being a next level to where Ryan Mountcastle could get to. It clearly must involve Cedric Mullins both maintaining the level that he's at and also sticking around. It has to involve someone, the Gunnar Hendersons of the world, not just panning out as a major league player, but becoming more of a high-level major league player. DJ Stewart, Austin Hayes, somebody in that group being a bit more than what we have any reasonable expectation for them to be. The roadmap to overcoming Adley Rutschman not being a transcendent superstar is perilous. It gets far easier if you've got Carlos Correa on your team.
Even if you don't have Carlos Correa, but you show a willingness to talk to him. You show the willingness to put that kind of money.
If the belief is that you'll spend the money otherwise, right?
Right.
Like, and that's
7 years, $175 million. That's not.
This goes back to why the Teixeira thing was a sham.
Right.
They weren't spending that money.
Right.
We know that. We know they weren't spending that money because they proved it. They weren't spending the money. And that's what makes this so difficult. Is this proof that you are willing to spend this money come hell or high water? And then we can debate whether or not it's best to spend it on one player or on multiple players. And we can have the conversation about, hey, isn't the bigger problem the pitching? Isn't that, if you're going to be spending this money, like, shouldn't you be thinking more about the pitching than thinking about this? Aren't you closer on this side than you are on the pitching side of things? These are all relevant conversations to be had. There are so many layers to this, I'm not exactly sure where to begin. Again, we begin with the, is this real part of it, I guess. But if it is, then there's about 6 different debates that can be had. Is Carlos Correa the entirety of the money that you'd be willing to spend if you're willing to spend it? This goes back to the Manny Machado conversation. No, sorry, the Chris Davis conversation in comparison to Manny Machado. A lot of us are embarrassed because we said we were on board with signing Chris Davis when the Orioles did it. But a lot of us made something very clear. If this is the entirety of the money that you're spending, no, don't do this. And I didn't do that because I thought Chris Davis was going to say that because I thought Chris Davis was going to fall off the face of the planet. That wasn't my expectation. But that was a mistake. It was a mistake if the only money that you were going to spend was going to be on Chris Davis. Spending money on Chris Davis needed to be a sign that you were spending money now. And that you will be willing to spend money on Manny Machado, who was 1 billion times more important than Chris Davis. Even before he fell off the face of the planet. Davis, that is. Machado's still fine. Make that very clear.
Love Manny.
The Padres spent the money on Manny Machado and said, that's not the only money we're going to spend. We get it. One player does not solve this. And by the way, it's still not solved. They had a rebuild plan, injected Manny Machado to it, and still spent more money. If spending money on Carlos Correa is a sign that you're willing to spend even more money than that, one, I have no idea where it's coming from. Let's make that abundantly clear. I don't have a clue on how a team that had to give deferred money to Chris Davis suddenly is flush with cash to spend money on Carlos Correa. And then more after that? Paul McCartney concerts are great, and trust me, it feels like you're making a boatload of money because I know how much I paid for my tickets. I mean, if that's what this is, if my $513 for 2 tickets to see Paul McCartney is what goes to getting us Carlos Correa, I might actually feel better about all of this. Might be at more peace sitting there that night.
Glenn Clark, the reason Carlos Correa is here.
Yes, you can thank me. Correct.
Thank you, Glenn.
You can thank me personally. Be all in. That's a lot of money, man. I'm struggling with the idea that suddenly you're so flush with cash that it's Carlos Correa and more.
Well, maybe you always had the cash and it's a change in philosophy because now it's not the father.
They won't send the broadcasters back on the road yet.
Isn't that a whole a baseball thing? Then?
No.
Oh, it's just the Orioles.
Plenty of teams started sending broadcasters on the road again as the season went on last year.
Well, that's so that they can pay Carlos Correa.
That's what all of these things are about, saving
so they can
money
pay
for Carlos Correa. I don't know, man. I don't know. Like, maybe it is. I got so many questions. I mean, so many questions about this Carlos Correa thing. Like, so many. I'm of course fascinated by it. Obviously, the idea that even the hypothetical thought of Carlos Correa being in play is exciting. How could it not be exciting? And perhaps a sign that the Orioles have said, hey, there's no more benefit to us being terrible. I mean, you're still, however the draft lottery thing ends up working out, you're still going to get a higher pick if you're one of the worst teams in baseball. You're just not guaranteed to get the number 1 pick. And maybe it's a sign to them that they say, look, we know this player alone does not get us there, but we don't want to be the worst team in baseball anymore because we know there's not going to be a benefit to being the worst team in baseball any longer. I don't know. I mean, it's so wild. It's so out of nowhere. And again, I'm still not even close to 50-50 in my thought that it could happen. But the thought of maybe is obviously quite fascinating to me. Just even the maybe, even the wondering and the possibility of it. And, it's like being a child and knowing that Christmas is coming and you're probably not going to get an actual dinosaur, but, you never know. You're a child. You don't know any better. You could be an actual dinosaur that shows up under the Christmas tree. I mean, it doesn't seem likely. I haven't noticed Mom and Dad going to the dinosaur store anytime soon, but, it could happen. It's possible. It's possible. All right, today's show is brought to you by Live Casino and Hotel Maryland and the FanDuel Sportsbook. 51 self-service kiosks for you to get your bets in the FanDuel Sportsbook at Live Casino and Hotel Maryland. It's the place for all of the big events. You're going to want to be there in order to watch all of them, including, of course, the tournament coming up. You're going to want to camp out in the FanDuel Sportsbook at Live Casino and Hotel Maryland. I know I'll be doing that exact thing, watching basketball all day long, getting my bets in. If you haven't been yet, you need to check it out. FanDuel Sportsbook at Live Casino and Hotel in Hanover. All right, this is the man who reported the Orioles' interest in one Carlos Correa. He writes about baseball for Con Las Bases Full. He's got a YouTube channel he's going to tell us about as well. He is a member of the Baseball Writers Association of America. He's Raul Ramos, and he's with us now here on GCR. Raul, it's Glenn and Paul in Baltimore. It's great to chat with you. Thank you for taking a couple of minutes for us this morning.
Oh, my pleasure. I'm here to answer any questions that you may have, and I know that you have plenty.
Yeah, Raul, as you'd imagine, you really shook up the city of Baltimore yesterday, my friend. You got this city turned on a dime, and all of a sudden absolutely gobsmacked and panicked. So I guess here's the difficulty, right? I believe it or not, I am not a bilingual speaker, and so I was forced to use Google Translate in order to read more of the details in the report. And so some things I always wonder about in translation what might be lost. So can you clarify a couple of things for me at the start?
Sure.
The figure 10 years, $350 million. Were you reporting that the Orioles were willing to spend that money, or that was the interest they had in spending that money, or was it more the Orioles are interested and the contract for Carlos Correa is likely to be in that territory?
Okay, let me make a few things clear. I was listening to you guys before you guys called me.
Yep.
And I think this is completely different than the Mark Teixeira fiasco.
Yep.
This is a different leadership. Let's have that straight up. And I'm sure that Elias and the rest understand that they need to compete with a good team in order to be able to run with and against the Yankees, Boston, Toronto, and Tampa.
Sure.
And so for what my sources told me, again, they met before the lockout. They exchanged figures.
Okay.
So, yes, they put an offer on the table. 10 years, top heavy. And now I mentioned this early in the morning in Spanish baseball news, and I mentioned it yesterday on my baseball channel. Top heavy the first 2 years, where they will be offering, where they offer at that point around $44 million per season, the first two, and around 29 and change the other 8. So what I'm saying, I'm not saying that Baltimore is going to get Carlos Correa.
Right.
What I'm saying is like they are making an effort. They are interested. And you know what? For a team that have been having so bad horrible seasons, they understand that they need to make an impact in order to become reliable. Another thing, you guys have been doing wonderful with your farm system.
Yes.
And in your farm system, you guys have Grayson Rodriguez, and you have about 6 Hispanic players in your top 30, not counting Cesar Prieto, the Cuban player that you guys got for very cheap, like for $600,000. The Orioles envision these guys to be able to play at a high level in the major leagues. And in their eyes, them bringing Correa to this group of Hispanic players, they'll be able to have fans from Puerto Rico, from Cuba, from Venezuela, to Mexico. So they want to cater also to the Spanish community, putting a good team, right? Mm-hmm. So that has to mean something about it. You want to put talent around, and they also understand that in order to be competitive, they need to bring more players in the future. If you go in your farm system, if they are able to get Correa, they have about 4 or 5 players that can play shortstop in your farm system, top 30. If they're able to get Correa, they could trade these players for other pieces that they will require in order to be successful.
Yeah, so, pitching standing out amongst that, right? That they are going to have a need for pitching at some point if this works out, and that would provide you the opportunity to trade young players in order to acquire pitchers. I mean, that's fascinating, Raul.
Yeah, so again, I'm not saying that they will get them. I'm saying their intent, their serious interest, and it seems that they have a plan. And also, having Elias is a link, right?
Right, of course. Yeah, we talked about that. I mean, almost, we've dismissed it in fairness until now. Like, we've talked about it, though, clearly. There is reason to think that Mike Elias specifically might earmark and say, this is the guy I want individually, and not just I want to spend this amount of money on any sort of player that might be out there.
Yes, and again, I'm not sure about these details, but I'm sure that if Carlos Correa is actually really interested, he will ask, well, you guys hire me, but what's the next step?
Right.
Who else are you going to plan to hire? But that's a conversation that maybe they already have, maybe they're having. I don't know. What I actually know is that Correa's changing agents to Scott Boras. I was told that there's a good relationship between Baltimore people and Scott Boras, so that's not an issue.
He is Raul Ramos, who's with us here on GCR discussing this report of the Orioles' interest in Carlos Correa. Raul, I guess, again, work through my, skepticism, of course, is the word that I'm going to use, because this is, as I said to you, this is gobsmacking, right? Like, this comes so out of nowhere for us.
Yeah.
Do you sense that this might have always been part of the plan for the Orioles, or did they need to see the market? Did you get at all a sense of how this came about, that the Orioles would be interested in Carlos Correa?
Actually, it's kind of surprising. I don't cover the Orioles much, to tell you the truth. I cover more Yankees and Mets baseball.
Mm-hmm.
But the Orioles, they have the space on the CBT, and that's what makes it interesting. So I'm guessing that probably when the lockout happened, the Correa team was waiting to see how much the CBT was going to go up, to see other options, to see who else will be able to offer. But let's remember, there's not that many teams that are able or willing to offer over $300 million. Now, the Corey Seager signing by Texas opened a can of worms, because if you're going to offer that much money to Corey Seager, then you have to offer same amount or even more for Carlos Correa,
right.
And that's what made Carlos Correa contract even a lot more money.
So okay, if the Orioles don't land Carlos Correa, Raul, do you read into this as the Orioles have the money, they're willing to start spending, and they've got to spend it elsewhere, or do you think this is more uniquely about Correa?
Well, Glenn, I don't know.
Yeah, I understand.
I don't know. If I answer this, I will be making it up, right?
Right.
And I'm just reporting.
Yep. Specifically about Correa. I get that. And by the way, I appreciate that. That certainly lends more credence to your report. The fact that you're not willing to hypothesize about something else. It lends far more credence to the fact that this is what you know about and this is what you know about. Did you get any sense about like where the Correa side is on all of this, Raul? Like that they, we heard earlier in the offseason, we heard reports that Correa would be willing to go to a team that was rebuilding, that he wouldn't eliminate rebuilding teams in his consideration. Do you think that there is a legitimacy to the idea that Carlos Correa would be willing to come to Baltimore?
Well, let's go 2 steps backwards.
Yeah.
Let's remember who is his agent. What we know is that Scott Boras doesn't left money on the table. If the Orioles are willing, that we know, right, and able to offer X amount of money, and no other team goes over, I think, because it's Scott Boras, Carlos Correa will sign with Baltimore. If we go back, and also now with the union, maybe, and I'm just saying, just in general, teams will a player will decide to sign with a different team. Maybe if the difference is not that much, but if we go back to Pujols, when he decided to sign with the Angels instead of the Cardinals, he signed with the Angels because it was so much money over, and not signing with the Angels, it will put a step back to his union bodies, to the players, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm guessing that if the Orioles offer the best offer, and they are, well, so far, without the CBT, that hopefully everything's going to be resolved today, they have the space. They're willing to offer that big contract. So as of right now, I don't see other teams doing this. Yes, you could say, oh, maybe the Cubs. Well, the Cubs, they have been trying to stay away from 10-year contracts.
Yep.
Right? The people that say that the Yankees will get that, I guess they're crazy. They're smoking something. And the reason is like right now they don't have the space. Yes, if they go over, they can pay the tax. But right now, the issue is that the draft picks. You don't want to lose draft pick. And that's what is putting like a break on all this. So again, the only thing I can say is that the Orioles, they are able, because they have the space under budget, and they're willing to get Carlos Correa to make the Orioles a better team.
Let me follow up with that, Raul, and what you spoke to about the interest it could develop for them in the Latin markets and what it could mean to the organization. Carlos Correa, I think there is a question that people are asking about Carlos Correa as a baseball player. Is he worth $350 million? Right? Nobody's debating that he's a good baseball player, but we need to be fair, right? He's hit 300 one time in his career, right? The Orioles didn't spend this amount of money for Manny Machado a few years ago, and I think most people would say Manny Machado was an overall better baseball player at that point than Carlos Correa. Would signing Correa make the Latin side of this? You understand his significance in that community because it's the community, of course, that you touch. Would signing Carlos Correa be that significant in creating a new market and creating new interest, that it would make up whatever the difference would be in whether or not a player is really worth $35 million a season?
Well, let's remember something, right? Personally, I don't think any player is worth that much. But the market
dictates it, right?
So that's it, right? Yeah. And again, this is what the 1% of elite players, and they're making that money because come on, if you were able to play baseball at that level, you want to get paid, right? But unfortunately, I cannot do it, so I have to write about it.
Yep.
So I will say that his impact will be huge. I think that, his impact in marketing, right? And I think that if he's able to sign with the team, that there will be a plan of like what type of player he wants to be surrounded by, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because you cannot only be surrounded by rookies. You need to be surrounded by other good players, like the catcher prospect. He seems to be a great player, but we don't know because they're only prospects, right?
Yep.
But he looks like he's a can't miss kind of guy. but still.
Yeah, we sure hope so, Raul.
Mm-hmm.
We are banking on that here in Baltimore. That Adley Rutschman really is that type of player. But of course, and as you said, if you were listening, Paul and I alluded to that. Like, this does alleviate some of that, right? That signing Carlos Correa gives you another roadmap to making this thing work. If Adley Rutschman isn't, legitimately the messiah as far as a catching prospect is concerned, if he's just a good player, this alleviates a little bit of that because you have more to work with.
And Glenn, let me say something to you.
Yes.
The only reason that I would say that probably it will put a rock on the road for Correa and the Orioles is that if he asks for like he can become like a free agent at some point of the contract.
Okay. So
and the reason is like they're trying to invest, right? They're trying to invest and to build around.
Right. So if he wants out after 4 years, that's not going to be something they're going to be in love with.
Yeah. Or I don't know 4 years, but definitely if they put a clause, if he wants to put a clause after 2 years, I think that would be a deal breaker.
Right, because it would be very difficult to fathom this team being a World Series contender in the next 2 years, right? Like that's a really fascinating side of this is that that would not make any sense at all for the Orioles for there to be a 2-year out for Carlos Correa whatsoever, because there's no way they can create a World Series winner in that process. Raul, do you have a sense for time-wise? Like, I mean, obviously, whenever this agreement, and we're hoping maybe it comes today with Major League Baseball. But whenever this gets put into motion, do you assume that the Correa deal comes together within a week, say, of whenever we baseball begins again?
You know what? I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know. I hope, but again, everything depends on the CBT. Everything depends on who's willing to offer 10 years, and we know that there are not that many teams willing to offer 10 years. I think that I'm a romantic, so I always wanted to see Correa finish his career with the Astros.
Sure.
And I would like that. You know what? I would like a player to start being a number one draft pick and finish their career with that same team. I don't know if the Astros says, you know what? Let's offer 10 years and I don't know. Let's say $300 million. I don't know. Now, again, I'm making this up.
Right.
I don't know if Scott Boras will give a hometown discount. I don't know. But we don't know after the lockout is over if there's going to be another team willing to match or go over. So I don't know.
Raul, let me let you tell people about your YouTube channel and what it is that you guys do with Con Las Bases Full.
So Con Las Bases Llenas, which is like with the bases loaded, is the biggest Spanish baseball website in the U.S. We cover baseball, MLB, Caribbean, Asia, and so on. Over 2 million people read us a month. And so if you read Spanish, if you want to improve your high school Spanish, you're more than welcome to go and visit us at www.conlasbasesllenas.com. And there you have baseball, news, stories, and everything 365 days a year. And also, I have my own YouTube channel. It's Baseball Ahora, baseball in English, and Ahora, like now.
Yep.
And we do it Mondays and Thursdays at 8:30 Eastern Time p.m. And there you see an analysis. You see interviews with players. We're actually more retired players. Like last week we had David Concepcion.
Oh yeah, I've heard of him. I'm familiar.
Yeah. And about 2 weeks before that we had Tony Oliva.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. These guys are okay.
Jose Contreras. We have had in the past Louis Tiant. We have had Orlando Cepeda, and plenty of legends.
Well, I mean, it sounds like something that if you are a fan of baseball, you should be checking out. Baseball or on YouTube. Of course, I probably butcher it. My Spanish, I'm sorry, Raul. It's been such a long time since I was in Senorita Knowles class at Perry Hall High School, and I have fallen apart over the years. But I'm telling you, you are flipping this city upside down right now with your reporting as people are losing their minds about the thought of the Orioles and Carlos Correa.
I can tell you, I have received so many
Yeah.
funny messages, tweets, and everything that, you know what, let me put it this way. I hope that he will sign with the Orioles.
Yeah, you'll be a very popular man, Raul. I'll tell you right now. If the Carlos Correa signs with the Orioles, we might let you throw out a first pitch at some point this season. Raul, I encourage everybody to follow you on Twitter. At Ramos Raul I, correct, is the place where they can follow you?
Yes, you can. Yep.
Raul, really appreciate you taking time to join us this morning. Will be fascinating to see how this plays out. But thank you very much for your time, your honesty. That absolutely means a lot. And look forward to chatting with you again down the road, all right?
Oh, absolutely. And hopefully we can talk a bit more about baseball during the season, okay?
Yes,
Good
no
luck,
question. Thank you, Raul.
Goodbye.
Raul Ramos, the man who first reported the Orioles' interest in Carlos Correa. Look, I'm going to maintain guard. I think if you listen to that, he comes off very authentic.
Genuine.
I do think it matters that when I asked him about other things, that he just said, I don't know that. And I'm not here to hypothesize. I'm telling you I know this.
The fact that he had exact numbers.
Yeah, that certainly stands out, doesn't it?
Yeah.
That definitely stands out. But even more so to me, hey, what do you think this means to the Orioles? I don't know. I can't tell you. That's not the reporting I've done, which I think kind of gives you a little bit more information about sourcing, right? Not that I'm telling you I don't know who his source is, but I think that it speaks to that. I think there would still be somebody that would say there's a danger to what if their side wanted this planted, right? What if the Correa camp, the Boris camp, wanted this out there because they're really trying to drive up the price from somebody else?
Right.
And
it's an excellent point.
I can't dismiss that, right? And I'm not alleging that by any stretch of the imagination. I'm not telling you that, but somebody would feel that way, and it needs to be put out there. We need to at least to say that, because we would do the same with just about any report. This is not unique to Raul Ramos reporting something. I would say the same thing if just about anyone reported this. There is always information that might be planted by an agent in an attempt to drive up a price of a potential free agent. But really odd that an agent would choose the Orioles to do that with.
Right.
Right? Like, really odd that would be your selection. It's almost so wild that it, has to be true because it's so wildly unbelievable. If you're the Rockies, and they're not in the market. Who's the team? If you're the Mariners,
the Mariners could
maybe
use a shortstop.
If you're the Mariners and you're thinking about something like this, and you see the Orioles out there, and you just know, because you know the inner workings of the Orioles, they're not spending that type of money on a baseball player, you laugh this off. Whereas if it's the Yankees that you plant this information about, you're like, well, of course that's believable. It's the Yankees. They could always spend this type of money on a player. Everything about it's wild, man.
You asked him a great question where you asked him, is it Carlos Correa, or are they willing to spend the money on any insert free agent? And I think that's a great point, because I feel like a guy like Carlos Correa would be the one that you would open the bank for because of him bringing in that Hispanic community.
Maybe.
And the fact that he mentioned you have 4 to 5 guys in your top 30 that can play shortstop. You can trade them for other players.
That's interesting too, yes.
I do believe, in my heart of hearts, I would think that he would be the guy. It wouldn't be, well, if we don't get him, we're going to go spend it elsewhere. I think he's the specific guy because of the links to Elias and because of what he brings to you more than just on the field. I think that was a valid point.
Well, and I also thought the part about the an out clause was very relevant too, right? There can't be a soonish out clause because that doesn't work for the Orioles and their timeline.
Right.
They're not winning the World Series next year. They're not winning the World Series the year after that.
Right.
We're looking at the 3 to 5 year range, even with Carlos Correa. And again, I'm putting this. I'm still struggling with accepting any of this as being legit.
How could you not?
Right, I have to. And no, this is not a knock on Raul Ramos. I want to make that very clear. He is a legitimate reporter, a member of the Baseball Writers Association of America. There is nothing in any world that leaves me to be skeptical of him whatsoever. It's just I'm skeptical of everything because the Orioles have never spent this money on a baseball player. I have to be skeptical of it. I say all of this to follow up by saying they have to be, even with this hypothetical Carlos Correa, the timeline, the pitching stands out.
Mm-hmm.
That the timeline isn't there. Would Carlos Correa's presence help your pitching too? Probably. I mean, let's not pretend like Carlos Correa is Omar Vizquel, but he's definitely a good defensive shortstop. There's no question about that. He helps you. But does he suddenly turn, insert name of guy they've thrown out there to Keegan Aiken? Does he suddenly turn Keegan Aiken into a high-level major league starter? No, probably not.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, anything's possible, right? John Means wasn't supposed to be a high-level major league starter. But does Carlos Correa alone make these fringe guys suddenly very high levels? No, that's not. It's certainly not reasonable to assume that. They would still have a pitching problem. They would still likely be a couple of years away, even with Carlos Correa. So Raul Ramos' point of, we don't have to take a break. We can go to Patrick here in a second. Raul Ramos' point that even with a Carlos Correa in the fold, you can't have a quick out in the contract makes sense, especially also if you're front-loading the contract. That wouldn't make any sense whatsoever. And front-loading it would be a logical thing to do because you've got pre-arbitration players right now. So if you're going to spend the money, why not spend it now? And then when your players when Adley Rutschman becomes arbitration eligible, the numbers start to go down for a Carlos Correa. If you're asking me to bet, I am, of course, still betting against it. Speaking of which, Simply the Bets moves to Tuesday starting this week, and we'll get to that later on. It's brought to you by the FanDuel Sportsbook at Live Casino and Hotel. We'll get to that later on in the program. If you're asking me to bet, I am, of course, betting against. Am I more willing to believe it than I would have been 24 hours ago? Yeah, of course. Of course I am. Am I at 50-50? No, I'm not at 50-50 yet. Is it worthy of a conversation if a credited baseball reporter puts out there that the Orioles have made an offer? And that was very clear. Of that dollar figure to Carlos Correa, we got to discuss that. So we did. A credible, legitimate, credentialed baseball reporter has made that report and clarified it with us that the offer was put on the table. They have made a legitimate offer to Carlos Correa. Will it happen? Again, I'd still bet against it, but I think it's relevant. All right. We will shift gears. Continue on here in hour number 1 of the program. It was a big night last night at Towson, obviously, as they clinched the CAA number 1 seed in their share of the regular season title. They get ready for the CAA tournament. Our next guest was there. He actually did a double dip as he was at Towson, and then he got over and checked out Morgan State as well. He joins us every Tuesday. He's our friend, Mr. Patrick Stevens, and he's with us now here on GCR. Patrick, what's going on, sir? How are you?
Oh, well, I'm sad that there's no more two-site doubleheaders in my future this basketball season.
Right. Well, there's no other basketball games happening in D.C. this weekend that you could somehow.
Well, I said multi-site.
Oh, okay. Well, no, I mean like there's none of the other teams home this weekend.
It's actually a pretty lean weekend for teams being home. Like Mason's the only team that's home. Maryland's on the road. Georgetown, in case you wanted to sort of torture yourself, on the road.
Why would you want that?
So.
All right, let's start with Towson. Before we get into the tournament, just the context for you of what they did in going from a miserable season. And I know everything about last year was weird throughout the sport, but a miserable season a year ago to becoming CAA regular season champs. For the average person that doesn't follow on a day-to-day basis, is this as wild as some people would believe it to be? Was there reason to think maybe this was coming more so than clearly the folks in the CAA believed at the beginning of the year? Give us the full context for what it is that Towson did this season.
Well, I didn't see it coming, and some of that comes down to the fact that I didn't know how good Camp Holton was.
Sure.
I think that was as much as of all the additions that they had, I think that's the one that probably had the greatest impact, even more than Terry Nolan Jr., who had some injuries but was he's back playing now. I think the other thing you didn't see coming was Charles Thompson becoming a double-double machine.
I don't know that we saw that coming on Christmas.
I was going to say 6 weeks ago that didn't seem likely. It's really one of the more remarkable in-season blossomings that you could imagine. That said, if you line up what Towson has done under Pat Scarry, and I'll just run through the win totals, after his first year when he had nothing to work with and won one game.
18, 25, 12, 20, 20, 18, 10, 19, and then last year's 4 and 14 season. So it's like there's a reset every 2 or 3 years, which, for those of us that followed college basketball before like 5 years ago,
Yep.
that's sort of how a lot of these programs work, that you would have, a 2 or 3 year run with a core group of guys, and then you just sort of had to rebuild and probably take your lumps for a year. So, I thought last year, I didn't think they would be as bad as they were last year, but I also kind of looked around the CAA at the start of the season and thought, gosh, like Delaware has all these dudes back, and Drexel won the tournament last year, and they've still got Cam Winter, and James Madison has a bunch of guys back, even though they lost the player of the year. And Northeastern's never bad, never, ever, ever bad, and they're bad this year. So you kind of looked around and thought, like Towson, can they really get that much traction? And I thought the same thing in UNC Wilmington, and those are the two teams that shared the regular season title. So is it a surprise that they're 24-7? I mean, and all those wins being over Division I opponents? I can't say I saw that coming, but is it a surprise that they would be at least back in the mix in the middle of the league? That would not have stunned me in the slightest. The thing that's most impressive about Towson that you couldn't have seen coming is that they're just so darn fun to watch on offense, which has really not been the case for them over the last several years.
So, I guess the way we say there is every reason to suggest that Towson is the team to beat going into the CAA tournament, right? I mean, like the way that they have played over the last couple of weeks and pounding Wilmington on the road, pounding Madison on the road the other day. I think that everything legitimately, maybe you look at just the second half that they played last night, they quote-unquote pounded Delaware, right?
Yeah, I mean, that was 40-19
right
after they resumed play last night. And it wasn't as if they just sort of took their time or anything. It was 17-2 out of the chute.
Right.
And suddenly a 9-point deficit is a 6-point lead, and you're like, this could be a 15-point game.
Yep.
Like that did not seem out of the realm of possibility. Even by the time they got to just after about the under 16 timeout, Delaware calls a timeout, and what happens? Terry Nolan steals the inbounds pass and scores.
Yep.
That is not what Martin Inglesby told Delaware to do.
I'm going to guess.
I wasn't in that huddle,
right?
But that's not what he told him to do.
I think that's a reasonable guess, Patrick. But this is where we got to. This is still a different animal, right? This is still going and trying to win 3 basketball games in 3 days, and
it is difficult, and it's something that Towson hasn't done for quite some time.
Yep.
And frankly, if we were to sit here and really dissect, the performance under Pat Scarry over the years, I think you have to be very impressed with just about everything other than conference tournament play.
Right.
That has been a real Achilles heel for Towson. Got to the semis a couple times, but it has not been a source of success. But you look at like you said, how they're playing. But even over the course of the full season, I'm looking at the KenPom numbers now. On a per 100 possession basis, they are scoring more than 4 points more than any other team in the league. And then on defense, they are preventing more than 6.5 points per 100 possessions better than any other team in the league. So, they're getting it done at both ends of the floor. There's not an obvious shortcoming for this team. They're a 73.5% foul shooting team in league play. They probably have a couple more turnovers than they'd like, but it's not too egregious. And defensively, maybe opponents get to the foul line more than you'd want, but Towson plays physical, and that's going to happen. So, but overall, you just look at it and you think that they have all the pieces. They're deep. They're better situated to play that third game. And that's kind of similar to what they were 2 years ago when they lost in the quarterfinals. You thought, if Towson could get to Tuesday, they're going to have an advantage because of their depth.
Right.
I think that depth is going to help a ton throughout. And I think that getting the 1 seed and playing either a terrible William & Mary team or a Northeastern team that hasn't been great but did pick off Towson earlier in the season, those teams, whoever's advancing, had to play less than 24 hours earlier. A huge advantage over being the 2 seed and having to deal with an Elon team that suddenly has found its spunk and just swept Hofstra and Northeastern on the road. So, you get there, then you get Delaware or Drexel rather than a Hofstra team potentially or a Wilmington team. If they're the 2 seed, they might be facing Hofstra in the semifinals. And I happen to think Hofstra is the second best team in that league. if you basically ran the thing over and over and over again rather than just the one time we did. So, I think that Towson's in the right half of the bracket.
Yeah.
And so you isolate Wilmington and Hofstra and a deep Charleston team and that Elon team I mentioned earlier, and you throw them on the other half of the bracket. And so you have a deep Towson team that could potentially play one of them on Tuesday. I like Towson's chances. That said, tournaments are weird things,
Yep.
and we already mentioned, Towson's recent tournament issues in the CAA. So it really is a one-at-a-time situation for the Tigers heading into D.C.
The tournament for Towson gets underway Sunday at noon down in D.C., and an opportunity to go down and maybe watch Towson end this over 3-decade-long drought of the NCAA tournament over the course of Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday at the G League Arena, the Entertainment and Sports Arena in D.C. Patrick Stevens is with us here on GCR. All right, let's cover the rest of the outlook in the Patriot League. Navy's the 2 seed. Loyola, boy, really fell apart, other than the one game where you and I saw them at home against Lehigh. And, boy, what a mess it was otherwise for them down the stretch. I imagine, you have to feel like with that defense, Navy has a legitimate chance to try to figure out a way to win 3 games, and it does not look great for Loyola's chances of doing the same.
No, I mean, we'll start with Loyola first, which, over the course of the season has been a better defensive team than an offensive team. But overall, you look at that was a team that was 5-1 in the Patriot League. It loses 9 of its last 12. It's not the way you want to be heading into the postseason, and just the way that the last week went, basically the loss to Navy on a steal and score at the last second, basically, and then essentially a no-show against American. I mean, that game was, I think, 35-14 at halftime. It was, I think American scored 2 touchdowns before Loyola got on the board. That's just not the way you want things to go. And so it's been. Let's face it. We've talked about it before. This was a team that was kind of built to have Santi Aldama around, and Santi Aldama ended up as a first-round NBA pick. So that's great for him, great for the program's, sort of reputation, but not great for how this team was going to ultimately unfold. And also, you look at injuries to a guy like Milos Ilic, that doesn't help either. So you kind of look at that, and Alonzo Foray hasn't played a whole lot here since the start of January. And that's sort of somebody I think that kind of his absence has been overlooked a little bit, just how valuable he was as a reserve in the front court and being out and what have you. So I think that the Boston University matchup is not a great one for Loyola. So that could very well end here Thursday night. And as for Navy, like you said, the defense is fabulous. That they're probably going to keep pretty much anybody other than Colgate in check. I mean, you go back and look and see, how many points they've given up over the last month or so. They have a 45, a 63, a 55, a 44, a 49, a 46, a 55, a 50, and then 74 up at Colgate, which speaks to how good Colgate is. So I like Navy being able to hold serve, certainly against Holy Cross or American, 2 teams that they've seen recently, and they lost to Holy Cross at home a couple weekends ago. And then after that, probably BU or Loyola. And then if they can get past that far, it'll probably be another trip up to Hamilton. But the possibility exists if somebody can pull a surprise, maybe a Lehigh, maybe an Army, that Colgate might get knocked off, and Navy could potentially host a Patriot League final next week. That would be Wednesday night. So Navy the 2 seed in that one.
The rest of the locals all still have regular season games to play. You saw Morgan last night. I know Coppin beat a bad Delaware State team too. They play again, which is, it's Coppin Morgan, right? So there's always a reason to be there on Thursday night. Are either of those teams interesting to you going into their postseason tournament?
Well, I might not have said that necessarily before last night, but I got to Hill Fieldhouse just in time for the opening tip-off, and it's a good thing I did because it was 21-4 in the blink of an eye.
Right.
It was a really impressive performance for Morgan State against an Eastern Shore team that had begun the night as the number 3 efficiency defense team in the MEAC. They were down to number 3 as a result of that performance. Morgan still has a lot of guys. Lagio Granson had a great game last night. Malik Miller has, I've extolled his virtues for the last several years. Love watching a guy that energetic play. They've got a lot of guys that were either high major guys or near high major guys. Trevor Moore was at Cincinnati. We saw Seventh Woods start last night. He's former North Carolina and South Carolina guy. And then, of course, Torian Ware, a true appreciation of the guy. It was probably hard to come by based on, sitting at home last year. He is an interesting player to watch. He had 17 points last night. He was one of the top players in the league last year. And I think Morgan, right now they've won 3 in a row for the first time all season. They get that game against Coppin, and they picked off the best team in the league in Norfolk State. So they have to feel like they can beat just about anybody in the conference. So I think they're a really interesting variable heading into that MEAC tournament. And with an 8-team league, now you're down to only having to win 3 games rather than 4 if you're in the bottom half of the conference, like you would have been, unlike what you would have been in the past.
All right. And look, I guess we should cover Maryland briefly because that was unexpected, I think is the best way to say it, what they did on Sunday. But I just don't know what it means much more than that, Patrick.
I think what it means is it means that this team had a really nice moment.
Yep.
And, they have something that they could genuinely feel good about. You think about, they've had a couple other decent victories along the way.
Sure.
Beating Richmond was nice. Beating Florida and Brooklyn was nice. Beating a depleted Illinois team, credit to them for taking advantage of the opportunity. But this was a situation where they just played really, really well, and Ohio State had no answers. And I didn't really trust Ohio State defensively to begin with, and I certainly don't after watching that game. But credit to Maryland for playing as well as it did. We've seen so many times over the years where Maryland had some sort of event where they either brought back the Final Four teams, or they were honoring Lefty, or they were honoring the Bias family earlier this season in that Virginia Tech game, and it just kind of petered out. It was not a good performance. And this time, with the national championship team back in the building, Maryland played the way that you kind of hoped they could have from the start of the season. And I think a lot of it comes down to if both Fats Russell and Eric Ayala play well, they can play with just about anybody. But it's hard for 2 guards to get 20-plus points in a game at any point. They've done it only 4 times this season. So Vermont, Northwestern, Rutgers, and now this Ohio State game. So at the very least, it's something that, A, gives that team an accomplishment it can feel good about. It also gives them an outside chance of at least finishing 500. They could get back to 500 tomorrow with a not great Minnesota team coming to town. I don't know if senior night in East Lansing is a particularly ideal situation for any team to have to go deal with.
Right.
But at the same time, if they've won 4 out of 5, maybe they get that. And just as significantly, maybe they can win a game or 2 in the Big Ten tournament and walk away, above 500 and avoiding that sort of fate of legitimately being the weakest team that Maryland's fielded in almost 3 decades.
So there's that, right? I mean, that's what it is. Quickly, I was thrown a name yesterday, and I just want to get your thoughts on it. Dan Bonner was championing Dennis Gates from Cleveland State as a head coaching candidate at Maryland. Certainly would be after the top list of candidates. But I said before, after, if you call around to the Andy Enfields and the Ed Cooleys and the Kevin Willards, and they just decide they're happy and they don't want the job, where do you go from there? Is 3 years of success at Cleveland State enough that Dennis Gates should be considered as qualified for a job like Maryland?
Well, I'll tell you this much: when he took over under weird conditions at Cleveland State. Cleveland State ousted Dennis Felton, the former Georgia coach, in the middle of the summer back in 2019, and so it was an odd time to get a hire, and they were not good. They did not have much going for them. I remember seeing them actually in D.C. They played in an event at the Mystics Arena in late November against UNC Wilmington in Eastern Kentucky, and I saw them win a 47-46 game, which I would rather not remember having watched. But that was a guy, kind of watching them, I thought these guys are going to struggle to win 5 games all season, and he won 11. I mean, you could have made the case that was as good a coaching job as anybody in that league did that year, and they went 11-21. So then to jump and be a first round or an NCAA tournament team last year, be a number 1 seed in the Horizon League this year, He's done really good work. He's got an excellent, background having worked for Leonard Hamilton for as long as he has. That's a guy that has a chance to have a really, really good career whenever he gets the opportunity to step up. I think a lot of people could do a lot worse than hiring Dennis Gates to run their basketball program.
On the lacrosse front, Maryland remains good. Loyola, a bummer against. We have to acknowledge it's a really good Rutgers team. Obviously, I mean Rutgers is very legitimate. Just kind of a weird spot for Loyola to be in, sitting at 0-3. I don't know how much panic there should be about Loyola necessarily. Obviously, the goalie situation still continues to be, kind of bizarre, I guess.
Yeah, and Charlie Toomey said after the game Saturday he feels like it's going to be Sam Schaefer getting the nod against Towson here tomorrow. And so I think that for Loyola, stabilizing that spot is important. And
Yep.
Sam Schaefer was always the guy that made the most sense to be able to stabilize it, given the fact that he did it last year, given the fact that he had played considerably in 2020 before that season got canceled. If you're Charlie Toomey, you throw. I don't want to say you throw out the first game, but you just sort of acknowledge, okay, this team isn't as good as Maryland right now.
Yep.
I mean, if you feel like you're only a goal shy of Hopkins and Rutgers, which is what the scoreboard said the last two Saturdays, you're not in a terrible spot if you're Loyal. Now, what you do have an issue of is you increasingly, as each of these games goes by, you increasingly put yourself in a spot where you're probably going to have to win the Patriot League tournament if you can't pick somebody off. And
Right.
I don't know if Towson's going to be of much help there. Might be a little bit. But unless they get Duke or Georgetown in their remaining non-conference games, it's going to come down to can they win the Patriot League tournament. And, when you look around the Patriot League, Lehigh's 1-2 and has lost to Hobart and Cornell. They're getting close to you're going to have to win the Patriot League tournament territory. And Army had a loss to Rutgers as well. They might still be able to stitch together something of an out-of-conference profile for their resume. But it's increasingly looking like that Patriot League tournament and being able to host that Patriot League tournament is going to have immense value come May. There might not be that fallback of, oh, by the way, we can just land an at-large bid. And remember, too, the Ivy League's back in play this year. So
Right.
That's probably going to somehow take at least one at-large berth away that somebody wasn't taking away last season.
All right, it's time for our game. Can Patrick Stevens name the MLB teams that this particular player has played for? We continue to be in a very difficult situation with our 5 or more team guys because they're just not overwhelming. This week, Patrick, I give you a 2-time All-Star, a man who once led the league in being hit by pitches. In 2005, he led the league as he was hit by a pitch 22 times during the course of the season.
You're really dredging at this point,
Patrick,
aren't you?
I have acknowledged this for some time that we are dredging. 6 stops, none longer than 3 seasons for Shea Hillenbrand.
Jeez.
Yeah, Patrick, this is where we are, man. At some point, we're just going to bag it and do 4-team guys only because the 5-team guy list is brutal.
All right, well, Shea Hillenbrand was definitely in Boston.
Most certainly was for 3 seasons.
I feel like, and gosh help me if I'm wrong, but I feel like he was a Dodger.
He was a Dodger for 20 games. How you got his shortest stint, I'm not sure, but he was a Dodger.
Did he end up in Toronto?
He did end up in Toronto. See, I remember that one, and I remember one other of these, but I didn't remember the Dodgers, so credit to you. You're halfway there.
So, do I vaguely remember him as a Brewer?
Not as a Brewer, no.
Not as a Brewer.
Not as a Brewer.
Okay. Was he out in the desert in Arizona?
He most certainly was for 2 seasons. That's the other one I remembered. So, by the way, you're 4 for 6 on Shea Hillenbrand no matter what you do here. I call that a massive victory.
Let's see. Where else was Shea Hillenbrand? I feel like there's one somewhat nearby that I'm forgetting or overlooking, but I'm not entirely sure about that, and it would be just a dart throw if I tried it. So why don't I throw out Atlanta?
Not Atlanta, no. Actually, you should have gone the opposite way. The other 2 are also out on the coast. The Angels and the Giants were the other 2 stops.
I do not remember that.
No, why would you? Why would anyone? I'm not sure the Hillenbrand family remembers such things. All right. Well, I had a Hall of Fame caliber player for you, but instead, you didn't 4 for 6 on Shea Hillenbrand. We don't have to go the super easy route. How about instead, we go with a man who finished in the top 20 of MVP voting 3 times, and a man from right here in Baltimore at Milford Mill. Played football a little bit too. 4 teams for Brian Jordan.
Well, Brian Jordan definitely played for the Braves.
Most certainly.
And the Cardinals.
Most certainly did.
I'm fairly sure he was a Dodger,
He most certainly was. This was the one I didn't know if you would remember or not because it was only 61 games and I didn't remember it.
Yeah, I don't know. That what year are we talking about?
We are talking about 2004. He was an off-season signing in 2004. Before he went back to Atlanta to finish his career for 2 seasons. He spent 1 season, must have been injury plagued as he only played 61 games in 2004 here.
2004. Gosh. Brian Jordan. Brian Jordan might have been how's about we take a stab with feeling like he's a National League guy. But I might be wrong about that. Let's go with the Cubs.
Unfortunately, it was his only stop in the American League. It was with the Texas Rangers for 61 games in 2004. Did you remember that? I don't remember that at all. I have no recollection of Brian Jordan playing with the Texas Rangers.
I remember it now that you say it.
Yeah, okay.
He wasn't there but I never would have pulled it from my memory.
What's the schedule for you, sir?
Heading to UMBC for their regular season finale tonight against Binghamton. UMBC in position right now to go claim the 2 seed in the America East tournament with a victory. So that would be helpful in that it would at least keep them home for 2 rounds before having to deal with Vermont in all likelihood in a title game. Tomorrow, Maryland for Senior Day for Eric Ayala and company down in College Park, and then Thursday. Still sort of sorting that one out, but I'm kind of leaning towards Morgan and Coppin right now just to get one more look at those teams. Could end up at Navy for a Patriot League quarterfinal too. And then over the weekend, Mason and UMass on Saturday, and then the CAA tournament. I'll make my way down to D.C. on Sunday, Monday, and probably Tuesday as well, definitely so long as Towson's around.
At Discourse, D1S Course on Twitter. Of course, the Washington Post for brackets, USA Lacrosse Magazine as well. Patrick Stevens, always appreciate it, my friend. We'll talk to you again next Tuesday, all right?
Awesome, Glenn. Take care.
Patrick Stevens joining us as he does every week. Boy, I am really far behind today. I couldn't be more behind. I have not taken a break, and it is already 11:12 a.m. Not ideal. Stan the Fan Ross Grimsley caught up with MLB scout Shane Turner last night. Nice conversation that they had. If you missed it, you can go right now to facebook.com/PressBoxSports, click on the videos tab, or go to PressBoxOnline.com/video and see it there. Stan's always doing a couple shows per week for you. He's got another one coming up this Thursday night. He and Gary Stein chat with newsmakers every Thursday night. And this week they'll have the great Bruce Cunningham joining them Thursday night, Stan and Gary chatting with Bruce before he officially retires. When we come back in, I'm going to get to your responses. We've gotten a lot of them, a lot of Carlos Correa chatter. We will talk about it next. Cass has a top 5. Also, some people calling out Cass for the shirt that she's wearing. There's so many different reasons why you're getting called out. One, because, we're in Baltimore, and secondly, because you've alleged yourself to be a Cowboys fan. And then, stop, we'll talk about it. Stop, we'll talk about it. Cass, I don't know what this is about, but she's getting called out for it. That'll all be on the docket next. Glenn Clark Radio. Sports fans, the wait is over. The all-new FanDuel Sportsbook is now open at Live Casino and Hotel in Hanover, Maryland. This is your chance to win big right in your own backyard. Bet on every sport with self-service kiosks and watch all of the action from the best seat in the house. Make every moment more at the all-new FanDuel Sportsbook at Live Casino and Hotel in Hanover. Please play responsibly. Gambling problem? Please call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit mdgamblinghelp.org.
That first sip. that first bite. Start your day off right with a delicious breakfast at Royal Farms. Choose from a fantastic selection of fresh Royal Farms breakfast sandwiches and top it off with a rich hot cup of the freshest coffee in the world. At Royal Farms, breakfast is available day and night. It's the freshest breakfast in the world. Real fresh, real fast. Royal Farms.
The newest edition of Press Box is available now. On the cover, we celebrate the 20th anniversary of Maryland men's basketball's 2002 NCAA Tournament Championship, as Gary Williams reflects on how the program rose from the ashes of NCAA sanctions to the pinnacle of the sport, and why his perspective of the title run has changed now 2 decades later. Plus, Juan Dixon, Lonnie Baxter, and the rest of the team relive the moments that ultimately led them to cutting down the nets in Atlanta. Press Box is available for free at over 500 area locations, including 60 Royal Farms stores. And you can always find the entire edition, as well as the best daily coverage of the Orioles, Ravens, and Terps at PressBoxOnline.com.
The biggest pro wrestling stars today and all time all have one thing in common. You've heard them on Jobbing Out.
Matt and Nick Jackson, the Young Bucks.
Thanks for having us, man. Appreciate it.
The great Kurt Angle.
Thanks for having me on the show. I appreciate it.
Matt Riddle.
Yeah, man. Thanks, man.
The champ, Drew McIntyre.
Oh, thank you for having me.
The great Ron Simmons.
Keith Lee.
Appreciate you guys having me, man.
Bill Goldberg.
My pleasure.
Charlotte.
Thank you so much for having me.
Mick Foley is with us.
This is the greatest name for a wrestling show I've ever heard.
MJF.
I'm glad you're happy I'm on this show because I'm freaking miserable.
Le
champion!
Chris Jericho.
Le champion.
AJ, Aaron, Brandon, and Glenn are talking pro wrestling every week on Jobbing Out. Find it at PressBoxOnline.com/radio, iTunes, and SoundCloud.
Stay tuned. Your chance to win $1 million is coming up. Probably not from us. You're listening to Glenn Clark Radio.
All right, Cass, I'm going to give you 20 seconds to try to defend the particular shirt that you wore to the studio today, given the fact that it's no longer the name of the team.
Not
2,
my problem.
you're here in Baltimore, and 3, more importantly, and I think the biggest issue here, you're an alleged fan of the Dallas Cowboys.
Okay. 1.
Yes.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
Not from Baltimore.
Okay, I understand that.
I don't care about the Ravens, so that doesn't mean anything.
I mean, I would
to
like
me.
to hope that after being here for a little while, you might be willing to at least have a passing, hey,
No.
Or
yeah,
at least
that,
the wherewithal to not say I don't care about the Ravens on a
Yeah,
Baltimore
right.
sports show.
to be aggressive about
It's not
it.
my team.
I understand that, but
have
to be
I been to a Ravens game? Yeah, I used to work for the Ravens. I used to work
I understand,
Ravens
but
games.
you're going after the people that are listening to this are all Ravens
I'm
fans.
so sorry, Ravens fans. I am not a Ravens fan.
Okay.
I'm sorry if
All right,
that upsets
we'll deal with
anyone.
that. But you're also
Okay.
you're not wearing a Denver Broncos
Right.
shirt either.
Okay.
Yeah.
But here's the thing.
I like that trip way better than that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just saying, it's a nice sweatshirt. It's a crew.
A crew.
It's a crew neck.
It's a crew.
It's a crew neck.
Yeah.
And to be honest,
I dated a girl who was on the crew.
Funny.
I know nothing. I dated a girl who was a rower. I'm not kidding. I'm like, this is boring as sin. I don't know why. I could not. I
Must have had a wide back.
I don't remember. I gotta be honest with you, Paul. I never paid a lot of attention to that.
I just
She
swimmers and rowers have wide backs.
She rowed crew for Washington College. I think she was good, but I'm not really sure. They don't have stats that tell you whether or not someone was good. It's just everybody's kind of rowing.
Her rows per meter are unmatched.
Yeah, I mean, I had no idea how to judge it, but I just remember going out for, what do they call it? Regatta? Is that what they call it? I remember going out for one and being like, what are we doing here? I remember feeling really bad for her family because they had to go to all of them, right?
A regatta gala.
I'm like, God, this just has to be boring as sin. Then I ended up dating somebody who was into jumping horses and married her. So I've had a really strange run of athletes that I've dated in my life. Anyway, go ahead.
All I'm saying, if there was a vote and it was would you change the name or keep it Redskins? I'd keep it Redskins. So point being is,
No, I would have stuck with Washington football team. That was fresh. That was fresh
I would
as
have
hell.
kept that
I like that.
before
I mean,
that.
Commanders
but I'm saying
stinks, yes.
between
Commanders
Commanders and
stinks,
Redskins,
yes.
I would have chosen Redskins. And I don't know. It's been it's just a cool crew neck. I chose the look of it.
You
over
understand?
the team.
If you said to a Ravens fan, "Here's a cool looking Steelers crew neck, you should wear it," they would spit in your face.
Okay, yeah, but those are the guys that like lose sleep over stats.
No, those
no,
are just
No,
fans.
no, my
no,
wife
no,
couldn't.
no.
My wife couldn't name 6 players on the team right now. And if you suggested to her that she could name 6. She couldn't name 10. If you suggested
okay, well, the
to
Steelers'
her,
colors are ugly anyway, so I'd never wear them. But like, I'm just saying,
That's not the point.
It's not my point
So-
either.
are you a Cowboys fan or not,
yes,
Cass?
Die-hard Cowboys
There's
fan.
no way you're a die.
Yes.
You can't be
No
diehard and wear their
chance.
biggest rival
Yes.
There is
sweatshirt.
0 chance you're a
Yes.
die-hard Cowboys
Die-hard.
fan.
Die-hard. Been to the stadium, watched games,
Christmas
took a
movie.
tour
It's
of
a
it.
phenomenal film. Nobody's arguing with that. Yippee-ki-yay.
It's
That's
a
her.
cool
That's her attitude when
brunette.
she puts on
It
that,
just
on that
doesn't.
sweatshirt.
Yeah, right.
Yippee ki
Yeah, ho ho ho! Now I have a machine gun. Come on, this is. I don't blame those that are calling you out, John. I'm with you. This
What
is
did- what
this
did
is the
John
exact.
say?
Hey, don't worry about it. You don't worry about it. Don't worry
Don't
about
be
it.
hating on the drip, okay? That's all I have to say. Don't hate on it.
Worry about it.
You know what? I wore this for a reason too.
What's that?
I planned this out. That's the crazy thing, because I'm gonna wear my Cowboys. Everyone's gonna see it.
This is
John,
so
you're
weird.
gonna see
This
it.
is so
I'm wearing my
weird.
Cowboys on Friday.
Also, Edge, I love you. I'm not freaking out about the word. I have accepted that the reason why it is the team changed their name, and I get it, and I think it's probably for the best, but I'm not the guy that's freaking out about the name. I'm freaking out because Cass alleges to be a Cowboys fan.
It's not
That's
alleged.
the problem.
I am a Cowboys
The problem
fan.
is she's an alleged Cowboys fan.
You'll see it on Friday.
and she comes in wearing
But look,
this.
it stirred you up, me wearing it today.
Yeah,
So-
but that's not. Is that what you think is? This is what passes as content in the world. This is the conversation we were having about
It literally makes my
the
head hurt.
Paul brothers last week. This isn't anything. This is you not having any standards whatsoever.
I have
No moral.
standards.
You have 0 scruples. You are completely unscrupled.
Scrupulousness.
God, ridiculous. All right, we'll get to Cassidy's top 5 in a second. Maybe it'll be other things, other societal norms that she does not care for whatsoever. Maybe that'll be her top 5 list today. Today's show is also brought to you by Glory Days Grill, home of the smoky thigh wings and all the other delicious food. You're thinking about what it is that you're going to do during the course of the first weekend of the tournament. I would encourage you to get carry out from Glory Days literally every day, or just hang out there at Glory Days and watch the games there. One or the other. I don't care which way you go. It's going to be delightful either way. GloryDaysGrill.com is the website for you to find out more. Let me try to go through some of these responses that we've gotten. Chris, I've already covered this. LOL, this feels like when the Orioles claim they really tried to get Mark Teixeira. I already brought that up. And Raul Ramos absolutely covered that. If they offered, if his report is true, and again, I have no reason to doubt Raul Ramos. I'm not reporting it myself. He's reporting it. If they put a 10-year, $350 million offer on the table for Carlos Correa, it ain't a damn thing like Mark Teixeira. It ain't similar to Mark Teixeira. It's the Mark Teixeira thing is why I'm more naturally skeptical about it. But it ain't anything like that if they actually put a 10-year, $350 million offer on the table for Carlos Correa. The comparison is completely lost altogether if that part of the story is true. And that was part of why it is that I needed to kind of ask that question and get it defined. Because, again, that Google Translate on his report in Spanish left there ambiguity that it could both be that they were interested and the number that it's going to cost to get Carlos Correa is X amount of dollars. He made it abundantly clear, no, this is the actual offer that they have put on the table is for 10 years and for $350 million. So, that's the end of that debate. And if that's the case, then again, I can't say this enough. I need to make it abundantly clear as I possibly can. If that is the case, then there is no comparison to Mark Teixeira. I'm sorry, our mentions are being crushed today, so I got to pull them up somewhere else. Other responses that have come in this morning. Yeah, I mean, a lot of people are going this route. One, the Orioles are looking to spend more on Correa in 2022 than they did in the entire 21 roster. These are the reasons why we're skeptical, right? Like, we're skeptical because a team never spending money and suddenly spending this amount of money on one player seems insane. But we also know there is a connection to this one player. Mike Elias was part of the regime that drafted Carlos Correa. And it might very well be that this one player is the one player they uniquely look at and say, if we're ever going to spend this money, I'm going to lay myself on the line and say, this is the guy that's worth spending it on. And I certainly hope that's not the case. If they don't get Carlos Correa, I hope that at some point they're willing to spend the type of money it costs to have transcendent baseball players. As a couple of people brought up, and I brought up earlier in the show, the toughest part about this is the direct comparison to Manny Machado. There's no getting around that. Not being willing to spend money on Manny Machado, who is, to me, unquestionably a better baseball player than Carlos Correa all around. And
I would agree with
around, I'm not trying to present it as though it's, Mike Trout versus Jeff Rabelais, but I think I don't know who could argue that Carlos Correa was a better baseball player than Manny Machado, whereas I think everyone can argue that Manny Machado is a better all-around baseball player than Carlos Correa. So it's a tough look to be the team that wouldn't spend the money, let Manny Machado completely walk away and wreck you in the process, get nothing in exchange for him. We got to be honest about that. And yet then turn around and spend the money on Carlos Correa. More money, right? What was the number for Manny Machado?
He got 10 years, $300 million.
Yeah, this is more money.
More money.
More money on Carlos Correa, who we don't think is as good of a baseball player. That's real. I mean, that's a real thing that stands out. Now, we all know the reality of it. These aren't the same decision makers. We believe at any level. The guy making the final call ownership-wise is different. The guy making the final call baseball-wise is different. The manager of the team. Every level of leadership has changed since that point. So I don't know what would have happened if Mike Elias was running the team and John Angelos was running the team. I don't know what would happen if John Angelos was running the team and Dan Duquette was. I don't know. It's definitely cannot be dismissed. It's a weird look. Everything about it is bizarre, but that doesn't mean inherently that it can't be understood how something like that could happen. And from Paul had a good one, but I'm sorry, I got to go. Our mentions are so crushed this morning that it's taking me a while to get back to all of these comments. I apologize to those of you that have tried getting in that are regulars. It's just we've been overwhelmed because these Raul Ramos quotes have been traded around the internet and everybody's talking about them, and it's a good thing. Paul, hypothetically, if the Orioles sign Correa and then Adley and possibly Grayson get called up over the summer, how much of a bump in attendance do you think that would give them? Fan base needs and deserves this jolt of positivity. I mean, overwhelming. Now, for then, if they call up Grayson Rodriguez in the summer and the team's bad already, even with Carlos Correa and Adley Rutschman, there's a limit to that, right? Like, even with more watchable players on the roster, if you're not winning games, there's a limit to how many people will just go out to watch because you have more watchable players on the roster. But there's no doubt it would be a bump, and what you're hoping is it would be a bump from you being the worst team in baseball to being a more competitive team. Not a team that's ready to go compete to win the AL East, but a more competitive, more compelling team, a team that's getting closer to where it is that you ultimately want to go. So you hope those things will come along with it. All right, we got to get to Cass's Top 5 because we got to wrap up the show by 11:40 today because we got to get to Simply the Bets. So we got a lot going on here on a Tuesday edition of the program. Cass's Top 5 brought to you this week by your local Toyota dealer, buyatoyota.com. Make the most out of every day in a Toyota RAV4. Available in hybrid or gas-only models, a RAV4 can get you where you want to go in style. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new RAV4s from your local Toyota dealer today. What is your topic for your Top 5?
Okay, so I was looking at a list of top, 20 most adored people, celebrity-wise.
Okay.
So I said that these are my top 5 that I actually disagree with, that I can't stand.
So where did this? Do you know where this list came from originally?
I have it saved, but I don't know.
I would like to know that. I would like to know. All
All
right. Well, we'll skip.
I'll show
all right,
you later.
we'll skip forward because we for time concerns.
Okay.
We'll advance Due to time constraints, we'll advance further ahead in the program. These are people that are beloved figures.
Yes, people love, but
that
I
you
like,
cannot
can't
stand.
Well, I'm looking forward to this.
I'm interested in it because this is quantified. Like, if you bring up Logan Paul, I'm just going to hate the world in which he is adored. So this actually is interesting to me for multiple reasons. So number 5 on your list.
Oh, number 5?
Yes, we build up to number 1.
Okay.
The one that you most disagree with.
Elon Musk.
Number 5 is Elon Musk adored?
That's what it was. He was on the list.
Why can you not stay? I'm mostly indifferent to Elon Musk. He's rubbed me the wrong way a few times. I do appreciate that. I think he's very compelling and interesting.
Pretty sure he's an alien.
That part
he makes
almost
me
certainly
uncomfortable. Like, if I'm being completely honest, something about him just makes me really uncomfortable and rubs me the wrong way.
It's that he's an alien.
Yeah. So, I don't know. Every time I listen to him, I think that he's kind of an a-hole, in my opinion. Like, I don't know. I mean,
he comes off that way for sure. Of course. Now, look, we also
FU money.
But he also deals with Asperger's, doesn't he? Like, I think that's part of what makes him, come off in a certain way is he has Asperger's. What's interesting to me, right? Like, there is a certain group of people that want to portray him as a hero when he decided he was like, I'm going to reopen the plant, in the aftermath of COVID because we need our staff to work. And I was like, well, or you could just pay them and not profit because you're extraordinarily wealthy and you could help protect them right now. But, sure, we'll just go ahead with this idea that it's somehow heroic that you're keeping your plant open, which, again, I think there is room in there for debate about whether or not the world should have shut down the way that it did. I absolutely think there's room for conversation. But the notion that anyone, even no matter what your beliefs were, was trying to paint Elon Musk as some sort of hero because he was like, we're not going to shut down. I'll go work with them. Like, okay, Chief, you have so much money that you would not have a problem if you paused your production for a little while in order to try to help keep your employees safe.
I think what I don't like him is he's a very intelligent man. And he has a lot of money, right? So, like,
well, there's no debating he's brilliant.
Right.
There's no getting around that.
Why isn't he doing something more productive than, like, some of the stuff he does? I'm like, really?
Okay,
like, that's what you do with your money?
I have no problem with him, like, trying to create a private space company. Like, I think that's oddly, in a weird way, I think it's admirable, right? Like, I think that he does. I think Starlink is a great idea. The fact that he's already gotten it out to Ukraine to try to help them and what they're going on with I think that's unbelievably admirable. But it's very hit or miss with me and what's admirable and what's not with Elon Musk. I actually thought he was okay when he hosted Saturday Night Live. I don't in any ways hate Elon Musk. I'm just mostly indifferent towards him.
I'm like, I don't have like a hate for any. I don't like I said, I don't have like. Well, maybe I do have some hate for some of them, but like I don't hate Elon. I just like there's just something about him that just sets me off. That like if he comes on, I'm turning it off. Like I don't care to watch. I don't like him. I don't understand why people are so like obsessed with him. Like I think that he tries to do all these amazing things, and some of them are just like not that amazing. Like,
I hear you.
The whole thing with like the car, the tank, or whatever he made. I was literally like, "What is this? Why?"
I think there's been quite a bit of that. All right, number 4.
Michelle Obama.
What?
For non-political reasons, let me just say.
So
that
what do you
right
have?
now.
I think she's like one of the most likable people that exists.
No.
What do you not like about Michelle Obama?
I feel like every time I listen to her speak, like just like a shrill goes up my spine. But also, it's like I don't know. She does too much, like too much for me. And like she seemed like she was more of like this little smiley sidekick that was just kind of like, hi, like I'm Michelle Obama and I'm gonna use my personality to like win everyone over. But I thought everything was just so fake and like I couldn't connect with her. Like I literally was like, you're annoying. Please stop talking. Like I could care less what she had to say. She pissed me off every time she talked. I think that her whole thing with the school lunches was so stupid. Like she was like,
everybody goes after that. I'm not opposed to like us trying to be healthier. I am just not opposed to that.
It was like 2 shriveled up broccolis for you to eat.
Yeah,
like she took away French fries.
I need to know. I need to know more about that. I need to know more about that.
I'll let you more about it, but we'll move on because
I don't. Whatever your political, I just
it's not political. Like
no. I'm not saying
that
for you. I'm saying for other people. I can't fathom on a human level. There's nothing about her that comes off unlikable to me.
It does for me, and like I just think like her and Barack Obama, like their personalities is like they were more fixated on their personalities than like political stuff, and that was my problem. It's like I just was like, come on, like okay, cool, you're like.
Well, they definitely came off as celebrities. There's no question about that.
More like celebrities.
They definitely.
I felt like I had Beyonce.
I don't disagree with that. All right,
like,
we got to move forward.
Okay.
3.
Cristiano Ronaldo.
Ooh.
Can't stand him.
Ooh, why?
Probably reminds her of an ex-boyfriend or something.
Not at all, actually.
He's very handsome.
Yeah. I mean, he's cute, and he's like pro and whatever.
But there's some allegations against him that
There
are out there.
is a
Yeah,
lot
that
of
I think that makes it. Like I think that alone would be enough for me.
He has a lot of mistresses. He invites a lot of
Okay,
them to games.
but again,
Hate that.
mistresses doesn't bother me. You do
That
it.
bothers
You do
me.
your thing. You do
No,
whatever
that
it is.
bothers
I'm
me.
not. What do you know about me? Do not kink shame. Not going to start the day.
Whatever.
That alone. But I thought there were some worse allegations that were out there about
yes,
Cristiano Ronaldo.
there's some like sexual assault
Yeah,
allegations as well.
that's where it
and
ends.
I don't
There's
like
no-
him for
not-
that as well.
not okay.
But also,
Not
like
okay.
my thing is, I feel like he's a robot. Like I hate watching him play. Like actually, genuinely hate watching
All
him
right,
play.
number 2.
Kendall Jenner.
I mean, I don't think there's much substance there for what.
That's
it's worth.
what I'm saying.
Yeah,
Her
she's
like sister leaked a sex tape, got famous, and now her whole career
going
she
war,
earns.
going war on the
I'm
Kardashians.
just saying, like I think I like Kim way better than I like Kendall.
I think there's more substance with Kim.
Yeah,
I think she's
mean,
become
she went to law
right.
school.
Like I think
she's trying. Like
she's
doing,
fought for prison reform. I think Kim
Mhm.
Kardashian's actually done a lot of.
And then Kendall was like, "Oh, my whole family's famous. Let me try to go skinny and walk down a runway." Like it's like really,
You
like
sa-
really.
You sound like a mean girl right now.
I
You
do
sound like
sound like a mean
Lindsay
girl,
Lohan
and that's
right
fine.
now.
Like,
all
I'll
right,
deal with
number
it.
1 on your list.
Beyonce.
What?
I can't stand Beyonce.
Thank
I
you.
can't stand
Thank
Beyonce.
wrong with you
I
all?
hate Beyonce.
Thank you.
Wonderful. All right,
No,
we got
she's
it.
not.
We're out of time. We got to grab a break.
That's
Thank you,
fine.
Papa Cast. That's her top 5. The opinions of Papa Cast do not necessarily reflect the opinions of Glenn Clark. We'll come back in and we'll speed through Tidbit 2 to wrap it up. It's Glenn Clark Radio. Sports fans, the wait is over. The all-new FanDuel Sportsbook is now open at Live Casino and Hotel in Hanover, Maryland. This is your chance to win big right in your own backyard. Bet on every sport with self-service kiosks and watch all of the action from the best seat in the house. Make every moment more at the all-new FanDuel Sportsbook at Live Casino and Hotel in Hanover. Please play responsibly. Gambling problem? Please call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit mdgamblinghelp.org.
That first sip. That first bite. Start your day off right with a delicious breakfast at Royal Farms. Choose from a fantastic selection of fresh Royal Farms breakfast sandwiches and top it off with a rich hot cup of the freshest coffee in the world. At Royal Farms, breakfast is available day and night. It's the freshest breakfast in the world. Real fresh, real fast. Royal Farms.
Glory Days Grill's winter seasonal menu is back with comfort classics like their house-made meatloaf and short rib grilled cheese. It also features the center-cut sirloin with grilled shrimp, the char-grilled pork tenderloin, grilled meatloaf sandwich, smoky thigh wings with Alabama barbecue sauce, and a Brussels and bacon appetizer. All of these items pair well with Devil's Backbone 8-point IPA or their anniversary IPA brewed by Devil's Backbone. And try their seasonal cocktails, Blood Orange Bourbon Cider, Apple Ginger Mule, and Captain's Hot Cider. Find out more and get your order in today at glorydaysgrill.com. Great food, good sports.
The newest edition of Press Box is available now. On the cover, we celebrate the 20th anniversary of Maryland men's basketball's 2002 NCAA Tournament Championship, as Gary Williams reflects on how the program rose from the ashes of NCAA sanctions to the pinnacle of the sport, and why his perspective of the title run has changed now 2 decades later. Plus, Juan Dixon, Lonnie Baxter, and the rest of the team relive the moments that ultimately led them to cutting down the nets in Atlanta. Press Box is available for free at over 500 area locations, including 60 Royal Farms stores. And you can always find the entire edition, as well as the best daily coverage of the Orioles, Ravens, and Terps at PressBoxOnline.com.
The Toyota Tacoma comes in a wide range of models and trim lines. You can choose the perfect Toyota to reflect your unique personality and driving habits. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new Tacomas from your local Toyota dealer today.
If you miss anything, don't forget that you can find whole shows later on Spotify, Apple, or Amazon Podcast. It's Glenn Clark Radio.
You like Serena Williams? How do you feel about her? All right, thank you. That's all right. We're good then. We can be all right.
Okay.
Serena Williams to me is one of the most important human beings on the face of the planet. So I think we'll be all right about this. I'm not like captain of the Bay Hive, but I just can't fathom hating Beyonce. I just can't fathom. Anyway, we got to move on. We got to move on because we're out of time. Thank you, Cass. It was Cass's top 5. All right, Tidbit brought to you today by Underdog Fantasy Football. Use the code PRESSBOX. Make your first deposit up to $100. We'll match it with free money for you to play with. Maybe baseball contests. Maybe we're getting there. We know there's basketball. There's hockey games to be played. You can feel like you're betting even though you can't bet on your phone or your computer yet with Underdog Fantasy Football. What you got, Paul?
All right, so this is about Towson. Towson at one point this year, they started their season going win, loss, win, loss, win, loss. So they were 3-3. At one point, they were 9-5. Since they started 9-5, they are 15-2. Of course, they captured the CAA regular season crown last night with their victory. And now they are the number 1 seed in the CAA tournament.
They are indeed.
Not only is it their first regular conference title in the CAA, but if they win the tournament, it will be their first conference tournament victory and first NCAA tournament appearance since 1991 when they made the tournament in back-to-back years. This was a lot longer, but we're short on time.
Yep.
Yeah. So, aside from the University of Maryland, can you name the last NCAA tournament appearances from each of the other 7 Maryland?
Is this a years question? You know damn well I can't do years questions. All right, but I can probably do in order.
Okay.
Right, I can probably go that route. The most recent appearance would have been UMBC.
No.
Oh, because Mount St. Mary. You said state. Sorry, I'm thinking of local. Mount St. Mary's made it last year. So yes, if we're saying the entire state, yes, Mount St. Mary's.
Okay.
Then UMBC before that.
2018, that's correct.
Then Morgan before that.
No. There's a team in between.
Oh, because Loyola in 12. Yeah, Loyola in 12, right.
Yep.
And then Morgan before that, the Reggie Holmes teams.
In 2010, yes.
And then then Coppin was before that.
In 2008.
Then Navy would be before that.
In 1998.
And that's that. That's the whole list.
University of Maryland Eastern Shore has never made the NCAA
Yes, correct.
tournament.
That's the entirety of the list because it gets back to Towson.
You crushed it.
Yeah, the years thing is just not. If there's some bizarre reason, like I happen to remember the Loyola thing because we just celebrated the 10th anniversary, so I remember it was 2012. I also can associate that with when the Ravens won the Super Bowl, things along those lines. Unless just naming years. Never gonna.
There's not
never
much
gonna
else going on, so it's hard to.
It's fine, but it's fine. I'm fine with it. I was fine with it. All right, print issue of Press Box available right now. Speaking of NCAA tournament, this is when Maryland won the NCAA tournament 20 years ago. We celebrate that anniversary. Go pick it up for free at your neighborhood Royal Farms, any of the hundreds of locations around town where you find Press Box, or read it all, PressBoxOnline.com. Tonight, ESPN Plus, UMBC hosts Binghamton, 7 o'clock, their final regular season game. Mount St. Mary's lacrosse is at Georgetown at 3 on Flow Sports. I'd start paying attention to Maryland baseball if I were you. They're 7-0. They are really good. They just went and swept a good Campbell team. Maryland baseball hosts Delaware this afternoon at 4 on Big Ten Network Plus. Also, Big Ten Network Plus for Maryland women's lacrosse. That's coming up this afternoon as well. Also against Delaware, oddly enough, at 5 o'clock. Big Ten Hoops tonight, Nebraska and Ohio State at 7 on BTN. Michigan State, Michigan at 8:30 on Fox Sports 1. Purdue, Wisconsin at 9 on ESPN. The rest of the college hoops, find at GlennClarkRadio.com. NBC Sports Washington for Pistons Wizards at 7. TNT Hawks Celtics 7:30. Mavs Lakers at 10. ESPN Plus and Hulu Devils Blue Jackets at 7. USA Network for WWE NXT at 8. Anything non-sports-wise that stands out?
The State of the Union is on like every station tonight.
Oh, that's right. I forgot that was tonight.
Other than that, the Larry David story, part 1 and 2. It's a documentary debut on HBO and Stuff and Things.
All right. Very good. Find it all at GlennClarkRadio.com. Thanks today to Raul Ramos, obviously significant, really dove into the details related to the Orioles and Carlos Correa. Thanks to Patrick Stevens. We'll get that up in the greatest hits section of the
Archives.
tab at GlennClarkRadio.com. We'll check in with somebody from Towson tomorrow morning. We gave them a reprieve this morning because they were very busy, but somebody from Towson is going to join us tomorrow. Drew Forrester will join us tomorrow, Stuff and Things. Anything else that we've got lined up?
Yeah, we have, oh my gosh, I forgot his name, but it's a draft segment tomorrow.
Oh, Chris Trapasso from CBSSports.com will join us for our draft segment this week. That's right. All right. Thanks to everybody at Cass, plug your socials quickly.
Oh, Instagram, Cassidy_Elizabeth22, and then Twitter, CassidyButler5.
Thanks to everybody at PressBox, all of our great sponsors and partners, Glory Days Grill, Royal Farms, CIAA Tournament, Grade 8's Memorabilia, Live Casino and Hotel, Underdog Fantasy Football, Blue Line K9, your local Toyota dealer, buyatoyota.com. Thanks to Paul. Follow him on Twitter, at Paul Valley III. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram, at Glenn Clark Radio. Have a great Tuesday night. Go UMBC. Go Maryland baseball. And women's lacrosse, Duke sucks. Ohio State sucks too. If you are with us on audio, do nothing. Give us 40 to 60 seconds. We'll be right back. If you're with us on video, give us the same 40 to 60 seconds. Refresh at youtube.com/PressBoxOnline or Facebook.com/PressBoxSports.